I'm going to show you how I use my video projector to enlarge my drawing onto a large canvas. You can also use the same technique for tracing photographs. Tracing this projection of my drawing only took 10 minutes, so it makes sense to invest some time into figuring out where to place your projector and easel. You can put chalk marks on the floor or just keep the projector set up, so that from then on, it will only take a minute or two to get started with your tracing. So let's get started. You can have your canvas on the wall, but these are concrete walls, so I have it on this easel. But you'll notice that it's at an angle, and that will create some distortion with the projector. So what you want to do is adjust this so that it's completely vertical. And I can do that on this one by loosening these two knobs on both sides. You want to make sure your panel is secured to the easel before you tilt it forward. That looks pretty vertical. I'll tighten it up and measure it with a level. I'll position the canvas up against the wall, and I have these expansion joints in the floor, and I can use that to line up my projector so that it's totally perpendicular to my canvas. I'm also going to lock the wheels so that the easel doesn't move out of place. I can use a bubble level to see if this is plumb. I think that looks pretty good. This is a canvas panel that I made from a cradle Gessoboard that was supplied by Ampersand. I have a complete tutorial on how to make your own canvas panels. There's a link in the description below. The idea is you want this perfectly vertical, and then you get the projector lined up to the dead center of the canvas or the panel. And that's so that there's no distortion in there. You can correct for distortion with some of these projectors, but it's much easier just to line the projector up with the center of the canvas. So I'll do that now. This is the video projector I've been using. It's the FANGOR 506. It's pretty inexpensive, but it does the job. And it's also good for watching movies or your favorite YouTube channel. There's a 1/4x20" standard tripod mount on the bottom. You can use a tripod or a light stand. People always ask me which tripod I use. And I just bought this new tripod. It's made from carbon fiber and only weighs 2 pounds. It's made by SIRUI, and it works really well for plein air painting or for mounting a projector to. So I'll show you how I set this up. There's a tripod plate on top, and I'll screw it into the bottom over here. Here's the plate. There's a ring that pops out on the bottom so that if you don't have a screwdriver, you can still tighten it. So you get it lined up, tighten it down, and then that ring folds flat. The really cool thing about this tripod is the way that the legs extend. You just twist it, pull it out, and then twist it, and it's all locked. Normally you have like 3 or 4 clips they have to undo individually. So this is so much faster. It's lightweight and it's sturdy. These expansion joints help me to line up my tripod with the center of the easel. If you don't have lines on your floor like this, you can use geometry to figure out the dead center of it. Or you could just eyeball it because it won't really matter that much. As long as you get close to the center, it should look pretty decent. I find the center of the painting by measuring the height of it, dividing it by 2. And then you measure from the center of the canvas to the floor, and that gives me a general idea of how tall the tripod should be. That way it'll be the same height as the center of the canvas. If you want to be accurate, you can measure to the center of the lens on the projector. Let's see how this works so far. Turn the projector on. Source is for HDMI or connecting it to your computer. I have a USB flash drive connected to this, and if you want to display JPEGs, go to File Manager. Then you got a choice between music, movie, or photo, and this is on the USB drive. I'll select that. So my photo is in the Painting Sketches folder. There's an option to adjust the tilt. You really don't want to use that because you can see at the top is out of focus. I'll adjust it so that it's parallel with the sides, and obviously this has to move backwards. And I'll keep it on the line. I'll adjust the focus. It has to go back a little further. It has to go back a little bit more. It's not bad. I'll have to focus it. It lines up pretty well. I think it's too tall, or maybe I have to tilt it down a little bit. There we go. So that's pretty well lined up. I could just trace this and work from that. So here's an example of a photo. I like working from drawings because I'd rather decide on what to include on a small drawing, scan the drawing, and project it. There's just so much detail in this that I'm not really quite sure what I would trace on there. And I really don't like tracing. I'd rather simplify the shapes, but I can get a closer view of what it looks like up close. The resolution of this is 1080 by 1920. So this is pretty close up. You can see some of the scan lines, but this is good enough. If you wanted to trace this photo, you could do that. I'd rather use my sketch because, like I said, it's much more simpler. So the one thing I don't like about using the slideshow with the USB flash drive is that you have to pause it in order for it to stay in this one image. but you can get rid of it just by hitting the menu. You do end up with this source menu on the top right, but it's good enough to be able to get rid of this logo. Another option is to mirror it to your computer, and that way it would just project whatever is on your computer screen. Now that I have the drawing lined up the way that I want it, I begin tracing it with the burnt sienna acrylic marker. I like using blue for the projected line drawing and a brown marker for the tracing because it makes a strong contrast. That way it's super obvious what lines need to be traced. I highly recommend these LIQUITEX acrylic markers for the tracing itself. I discourage you from using anything like a Sharpie or a regular marker because when you paint over that, the ink might actually bleed through your paint layers, and you don't want that. These are made from acrylic ink, and they have the same pigments that they use in their paints. So you can see the light fastness is rated as being excellent. It's also opaque. These markers have a chisel tip, which means you can draw with the fine point, or you can turn it so you're drawing with the wider edge. One of the advantages of using this over a brush is that you don't have to constantly dip into a palette, and you can draw for a while before having to press down to load it up with more ink. They come in a wide variety of colors. For underdrawing, I like the burnt sienna, and if you want something lighter, raw sienna works pretty well too. You'll notice that my lines are blue, and that's from a scan of this drawing here. This is actually a transfer. I often sketch things out on tracing paper. This is like a value study that I did. And you'll see that I eliminated details. The photo had a stone wall, which sort of leads your eye out of the picture frame, so I got rid of it. I like working with tracing paper because when I get something I like, I can put another sheet over the top of it, trace the parts that I want, and eliminate the things I don't want, such as this wall. Being able to simplify a scene is a very important skill. I made an entire video called the #1 tip found in most art books, and it's all about eliminating unnecessary details. When you think you're done tracing the image, it makes sense to put your hand in front of the projector just to see if you missed any lines. Also, you might want to leave your projector set up for a while in case you miss something and you need to trace it. Or if you paint over it and you lose your lines, you can always turn the projector back on and trace part of the image again. I started this painting out by toning it with a color, and you'll notice that the marker doesn't smear at all, and that's because the acrylic marker is water resistant when it's dry. I feel like having this drawn out is an advantage because now I could just focus on the painting. Toning the canvas is also an advantage too because it eliminates the white of the canvas, which makes it easier for you to judge colors and the values. The other advantage is that if you happen to miss a spot, you won't have this stark white showing through. You have this nice warm color. I made an entire video about the benefits of toning a canvas. There's a card at the top of the screen if you want to watch that next. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that I would show you some geometry tricks for getting your projector perpendicular to your canvas. And that's up next. You can search for isosceles right triangle calculator. And this is basically where our easel is, and that's where the tripod is. I know from experience, it's about 67 inches from the wall. So I'll put that in here. How this works is, this is saying the hypotenuse, which is A, is 134 inches. The two equal sides are 94.75. So if I divide 134 by 2, that means this is 67 inches, and this is 67 inches. Let's say this is where my easel is, and this is where the tripod will be. If I measure 67 inches to this side and mark the floor, and then do the same thing on this side, I could take two tape measures or a piece of wood that's 94.75 and swing them around until they meet, and that will be precisely 90 degrees to the wall. Like I said, you can eyeball this, but if you really want it perfect, this is how you can do it. And once you mark this out, if you mark a line like this, you can use that in the future. So I have two pieces of string marked out at 94.75 inches, and where they intersect is where the perpendicular line would be. So where those two lines intersect is where this is a right angle with the wall. Please like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. Up next, you can watch my videos about how to make canvas panels, the 5 benefits of toning a canvas, or 10 game-changing art supply purchases. Thanks for watching.